Hello everyone, welcome to today's session of Durga Software Solutions Easy English. In our previous classes we have discussed about the question tags based on 12 tenses, and today in our class we are going to discuss about active and passive voices based on different tenses that we have learned in our previous sessions. Well, okay. So students, before dealing with active and passive voices, I would like to put you a question. May I know what is voice? Voice. Well, voice is nothing but it is one's opinion. One's opinion. One's opinion is called voice. It could be my opinion, your opinion, your friend's opinion, or your relative's opinion, your parents' opinion, your lecturer's opinion, anyone's opinion it could be. And remember, this opinion could be in a positive manner or in a negative manner, or sometimes it could be a interrogative form. Alright? Yes. Okay, as of now, this voice got classified into two different types of voices. Those are active voice and passive voice. Active voice, passive voice. Now, I would like to give some codes to my active and passive voices for easy remembrance. And I call my active voice as AV here for my comfortability. So, capital A and capital V I am using to indicate active voice. Okay, the same manner I am taking the help of capital V and capital V, capital P and capital V to indicate passive voice. To indicate my passive voice. This is my short form for active voice, and this is my short form for passive voice. Well, okay. Now, I would like to give you few more techniques. As we studied in our previous classes when we were a student, we might have undergone n number of definitions based on active and passive voices. Okay, we need not to read all the habla, 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 habla sentences or the definitions. And here we are going to learn these active and passive voices in an easy manner with short form of techniques. Okay, so first of all, I would like to give you some codes to remember this active and passive voices. Okay, and I want to say that active voice is a worker. Okay, and passive voice is manager. Active voice is a worker and passive voice is a manager. Worker means who does a lot of work. Yeah, who does a lot of work by itself. That person is called a worker. Okay, then who is a manager? A manager is someone who directs his workers to make the work done. Who directs his workers to make the work done. That means he pushes his workers to finish the work quite quicker. So we call this passive voice as a manager and active voice as a worker. You know why? Here in active voice, the main verb takes the direct action, but in passive voice, the direct action cannot be seen, but an indirect approach can be seen. That means the helping verb makes the active verb to perform its action in a rightful manner. So that is why we call it as a passive voice, and hence we called the previous voice as active voice, because in this active voice the main verb activates, performs the work by itself. Let me give you some examples. I've got an example with me. My example is this. Sheila teaches English. This is my actual sentence which is in the active voice. Okay. This is a active voice, and here I can see directly Sheila teaches English. There is no other verb, helping verb that took place in between. Here directly it is in a tense form. When we go to tenses, this belongs to simple present tense, right? So for this, the active voice, this is the active voice, and for this the passive voice could be this way. English is taught by Sheila. See here, English is taught by Sheila. So can you see any direct action that is taking place in this sentence? No, there is no direct action that is activating here as the action took place in the previous sentence. It's not like that. In fact, the information was quite passive to us. It's not active. Whereas in the first sentence, the information was quite active because Sheila directly puts the action into the scenario. So Sheila teaches English is regarded as active voice. But in the second sentence, by Sheila, so English is taught by Sheila. A direct action is not performing, but instead something is making something to perform something. That's what we can observe in this area. That is why we call this as passive. So the information that is given in this sentence is quite passive. Okay, and the information that is provided in the above sentence is quite active. So here this is like a manager, and here it's like a worker. It has got different channels to make the work done. They can call to someone. What do the managers usually do actually? They direct the workers, they direct the employees, right? So they give a call to the floor managers, and floor managers are responsible to lead the supervisors, and supervisors are responsible to take the rightful information directly to the employees those who are working in that particular area, right? So some indirect approach is taking place, some passive approach is taking place. But in the first sentence, a direct approach is taking place, the worker itself doing the work by himself. So that's what we can see. So to understand few more examples, I would like to show you a PPT. So after seeing the PPT, you can understand in how many ways, there are several ways to create this passive sentences out of the active sentences. This is not only the one of the forms that we have got the active sentences. As we have dealt with 12 tenses in our previous sessions, we also can convert these 12 direct tenses into 12 active passive voices. Okay, 12 active voices can be converted into 12 passive voices. But for instance, I would like to show you few examples how we usually play games with active voices in our daily life. Okay, let's have a quick look at it. I'm going to show you a beautiful PPT. Most of you will burst in laughter. Yes, you can see here. Have you seen? Yes. See, some information is being carried in the vernacular language of Kovaisharala and Brahmanandam. So, two pictures are provided for us here on the screen. In this, some information is also hidden here in the form of AV and PV. AV stands for active voice and PV stands for passive voice. See here, in the active voice zone, Kovaisharala teases Brahmi, right? Is she teasing him? Yes, obviously she is teasing him. And to convert this sentence into passive voice, what is the structure that I used? You have to focus on the most of the time. Sharala teaches Brahmi became, when it comes to passive voice, it has become Brahmi is teased by Sharala. Is it clear? Brahmi is teased by Sharala. So let's see the next slide. Again the same slide, but information was bit changing here. Active voice. In the active voice, now I have changed my active voice speech here. Sharala teased Brahmi. In my previous slide, Sharala teases Brahmi, but in my next slide, it has become Sharala teased Brahmi. So this automatically changed. If this changes automatically, the pattern of passive voice also changes. Then suddenly it has become Brahmi was teased by Sharala. Okay. Now I would like to show you one more sentence. Now I have framed my active voice in the future tense. Sharala will tease Brahmi. And the passive voice for this is Brahmi would be teased by Sharala. Okay. So this is actually a small example that we would like to give you, and one more example we would like to place, that is, see, when it comes to the natural life incidents, it's something like this. When you see this slide, you can see some information in the active voice. You must not leave the door open. This is active voice. Of course, this is in the negative sentence, but still it can be converted into passive voice. You must not leave the door open. This is a general and simple sentence that we often speak at home. And coming to passive voice, the door must not be left open. See here, the last part of the active voice occupied the first position, that means the subject's position, and remaining part we are going to discuss in very quickly, and the beginning part was left over here. That means in the first sentence the information was quite directive, means the action was done on the spot directly, but in my second sentence, of course the action was done, but the information was given in a passive approach. That's what we have to understand. Okay, when coming to the usages, you know why do we use active and passive voices in our daily lives? Yes, of course, this seems to be a very interesting area for us, but still we should understand that even nowadays when you would like to document something, you have to use your passive voice. Let me show you how you are going to use your passive voice. See, if you read this slide, you will understand how this is going to happen. Though Michael tried hard not to be negative, his spirit was broken by years of rejection and feelings of inadequacy. He was told by his therapist that he would overcome his negative attitude, but that first he would have to be willing to face past demons. After many sessions and positive reinforcement activities, Michael's well-established walls of negativity were slowly being torn down by his therapist. Today, Michael is on the road to recovery. He is now perceived by family and friends as a man with an improving outlook on life. See, in fact, this is some sort of information that is given in a passive form. You know, who is speaking here? Good. The author is speaking here. In fact, the author is not giving direct information. He is giving the information in a passive manner. That means, students, you might have understood that passive voices is very important at the time of documentation. Of course, this is a small narration, but when it comes to the corporate sectors, we tend to operate many operations like managing section, or for the audits. If you would like to focus yourself towards the audits, you should have relevant documents with you, and to document you need to have respective voices with you. So sometimes we don't only fix to the 12 respective tenses that we discussed. We also should have something to do with active and passive voices. So today we are going to learn something deeply and very briefly about the formation and existence of active and passive voices. Okay, so till here have you understood? Once again I am going to recollect everything what we explained you just now. Students, voice means nothing, it is one's opinion. Okay, and in general in English we have got two types of voices. One is active voice and the other is passive voice. The code for active voice is worker. That means rather than writing as worker, I can give the explanation as employee. Okay, he is an employee. And for the passive voice, I would like to name it as a employer. Who is an employer? Who is a boss? Boss himself is called an employer, under whom more than 10 people works, right? So that person is treated as an employer. And who is an employee? Who works under the boss is an employee. Okay, that means an employee always has to perform his actions directly. That is why we have chosen this particular name to active voice, and employer name got rated to passive voice. So now let us understand how this has been formed, how a passive voice is formed. So before explaining you all the formations of active and passive voices, I would like to tell you why we call a respective sentence a passive voice sentence, and how can we identify that sentence in English grammar. What was the example that I took just now? Very good. Sheila teaches English. Okay, Sheila teaches English, and I said this is my active voice. See, when you look at the sentence, have you come across these type of sentences anywhere in our previous sessions? Yes, naturally we had come across with these type of sessions in our previous classes. So when you split this sentence according to the structure, Sheila goes to the subject part and teachers go to the verb part, V5 or whatever it is, V5 or V1 or something, and this now English I am taking it as an object. That means forget about the forms of verbs here. In general I am considering it as subject, verb and object. Okay, and this is one of my sentences. And I would like to take one more sentence. Sheila teaches in a school. And this is my second sentence. Of course, this also belongs to simple present tense, and this sentence also belongs to simple present tense. And for our information, I would like to split this sentence into the structure. Now, according to the structure, Sheila stands for subject and teaches stands for verb, and the remaining part of the sentence I cannot name it. This one is a preposition, right? This is an article, and this is a common noun, what I am naming it as. Okay, of course this is English, this is the name of a subject, but still I just rated it as object because only one word, one noun is mentioned immediately after verb. So I declared this particular word as object. But here in my second sentence, I am unable to do that. Why? Because I have got n number of words here. Of course, this is a noun. But before noun, there are two more words which are really different from each other. Okay. So, I cannot consider this whole part as object. It is not object. So, I cannot name it. Alright. So that I am just calling it as intransitive. That means it cannot be transferred. It is intransitive. And coming to this part, this is transitive. It can be transferred. Okay. So instead its place, I can put some other thing. So Sheila teaches English. Instead of English, I can remove English and I can put some maths, physics or something else. So I call this part of my sentence as transitive, and as a whole I have named it as an object. What? Very good. It is object. Subject, verb, object. So this I can treat it as an transitive part of my sentence. Coming to my second sentence, I cannot change. I can change the name of the noun here, but I cannot change this part. Sheila teaches in an institute. This can be changed, but this particular position cannot be changed. Instead of in, I cannot use on, and I cannot say that Sheila teaches on an institute. Why? Is Sheila sitting on an institute and teaching? No. So that is wrong. That means its structure and form cannot be changed here. The existence cannot be removed. So that is the reason I have given the name to this as intransitive part of the sentence. So students, when there are sentences like this, if you come across the sentences of this type of situations, you have to be very careful that only the transitive sentences, I mean the sentences which has got object in it, only can be converted into passive voice. Okay, and the sentences which are intransitive, That means the sentences which doesn't have object in it, they cannot be converted into passive voice. This you have to note it down. So a transitive sentence can be converted into a passive form, but an intransitive sentence cannot be converted into a passive form. You know why? To have the passive form, we should take the help of object. If there is no object, how can you convert an active sentence into passive sentence? It's not possible. It's highly impossible, right? Bowl of rice is put in front of you, and if you don't have the source to eat, if you are not provided with hands, how do you eat? We can't eat. Of course, you have got the hands, but if you don't have mouth, somebody stitched your mouth for not eating. So what do? You cannot eat. You have the hands with you, you have the food in front of you, but mouth is not provided to you. Can you eat food? We cannot eat. In the same manner, to convert an active voice into passive voice, we should have the object. Object is the foremost important thing for us to convert an active voice into passive voice. But a transitive sentence in which the object is absent, those sentences cannot be converted into passive voices. Can you give me some more examples like that? Yes? Okay. Let me take a very simple example. Every day we observe this with our mothers, right? My mother cooks food. My mother cooks food. Or yesterday my mother cooked biryani for me. My mother cooked biryani for me. So I stated, my mother cooked biryani. Now, can you split into the structure? Very good. This is subject, my mother is subject, cooked is verb, biryani is object. Okay, so this can be converted into the passive voice. Why? Because there is an object at the end. What is an object actually? You should identify the object. If you don't know to identify the object, again this becomes very problem to us. Very, very problematic. Okay. See, when a noun is followed immediately after verb, then that is called an object. Okay, but in some of the sentences there won't be object, direct object. For example, in the continuous tenses and all. Again we have some other source to convert that active voice into passive voice. But make sure that whatever you do, but in between, that should not be divided. There should not be any break in the sentence with a preposition. Preposition or conjunction. If a preposition and conjunction takes place, especially with a preposition, if you find a preposition, then you have to think that belongs to that next part of the sentence belongs to the intransitive part of a sentence. Okay. So now you tell me, can this sentence be converted into passive voice? Yes, it can be converted into passive voice. And I'll show you how you have to convert. Okay, don't worry. But for our understanding, I'm just clarifying some doubts to you. Okay, my mother cooked biryani. Now I would like to give one more statement taking the same example. My mother cooked on an electric stove. See, I didn't specify what my mother had cooked, but in fact I specified only what is the source of cooking. Okay, so my mother cooked on an electric stove. When you split this sentence, how the structure is going to form? My mother is for subject, cooked is for verb. Of course, stove, electric stove is a noun, I understand, but before the noun there is something taking place, that is preposition. Okay, An electric stove is a common noun. It's a common noun. But before common noun, some other person is sitting here, putting chair and sitting there. Who is that? It's preposition. So obviously this will not become a transitive sentence. So there is no object. So this particular statement or this particular sentence cannot be converted into passive voice. Is it clear, students? So as of now, what are the rules that we have discussed regarding active and passive voices? Very good. We have discussed that to convert an active voice into passive voice, object is compulsory for us. And second point, we cannot convert the intransitive sentences into the passive voices. That means only transitive sentences can be converted into passive voices. And active voice means the action is taken directly by the main verb. And indirect voice, passive voice means the action is described in a passive way. Okay, all right. So that is the secret behind active and passive voices. Now we have finished understanding the structure, the common structure for active and passive voice, and we also understood that what sort of sentences can be converted into passive voices and what sort of sentences cannot be converted into passive voices. Now, keeping this in our minds, making this as a base form, we are going to discuss 24, altogether 24, 12 plus 12, okay. So 24 active and passive voices as per the tense table. Shall we do that? Okay, quickly we are going to do it in a short span of time. Just please give me few seconds time to make my board clean for my next examples.